Are we back? Yes, I think we're back. So, in the previous video, I think I added my link to the regular layout, but not the... Okay, so regaining my thoughts. I added it to the layout for desktop view, but not the responsive link. So I say we should correct that issue. Alright, so here we are. We do see that we have it on the regular, so we have our nav link in place. But where else is dashboard is shown? Okay, so there's a responsive one. So basically, I think we can take most of this out and duplicate it. And I think, if I remember right, we want to call this Chirps. And I think the route we were using is chirps.index. Alright, so let's see if that worked. So we're here on the radio screen. If we go down to a smaller version, we Chirps here. Okay, sure enough, we have Chirps here as well. Alright, and then we still have this. I think in the last video I made this so that it would just give me a alert. Still has the alert, so I'm good so far. Okay, so if you recall in the previous video, we created two routes for index and for store. So we looked in this controller previously, we created the index method, so now we need the store. So basically, this is your post request that will store your chirps. So I have my code window open here. I can go ahead and hit a Command O and go to the chirps controller. So we're not passing anything to the inertia component yet. So store is where we're at, and I don't think we've actually done anything with the actual data yet. But essentially, we're going to validate it. The message has to be required. It has to be up to 255 characters, which I wonder what a tweet limit is. So a tweet can actually be 280 characters. And I spelled tweet wrong. So now, as we build out this controller method, we're going to validate the message, make sure it's a max of 255 characters, and it's required. We're going to get the user from the request, and then create a chirps from the chirps relationship, and then finally we are going to redirect back to our chirps.index. So this isn't going to work yet, but we'll put it together and we'll do a little error-driven development, as I like to call it. Okay, so here we're back on the code script screen, and we should see that this doesn't work. So I did add in a little logic here to alert. Okay, so it should still make the post request, but then give you a confirmation, which this is probably going to be switched to a toast, I'd imagine, or maybe nothing, but let's just go ahead and do a new chirp. And it'll be something like first time caller React and Laravel actually work. Who would have thought? And if I chirp, something's happening. Oh, so you're seeing that you do not have a user method on chirps. All right, so I'm not going to go the route that I was going, the the tutorial route, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can fix this. Alright, so we have some casts. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen casts done like that before. Usually, fillable is always in there, but the casts. Okay, so email verified is the date time, password is hashed. Cool. I think I probably have seen that, but it might be new with Laravel 11. Okay, so I didn't really want to do that. The thing I wanted to do is chirps, and as my AI tools have shown me, that's exactly what I need to write. And I know that, but it's boilerplate, so saving me a little time goes a long way. I like to kind of clean this up. I know I should probably get my editor to do this on itself, but nah, this one's wrong. So, I don't know. Well, if I do that, it's going to tell me to fix it. Oh yeah, it's fixed it. I think that's all the user's chirps. And these generally need to be a period at the end, but it's good to have a description. Okay, so now if I refresh, I don't know if I can refresh. Fillable property. The message is not fillable. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do this. As you saw in the other one, we have something called protected fillable. And sure enough, that's what we need. Okay. Now, do we have that? Oh. We don't have our migration. We do have a migration, actually. We haven't ran it, though. So chirps table, we have an ID. So we do need a message for sure. And this is just to kind of speed things up. Sometimes this stuff is pretty horrible. So I believe text and string are different. String is smaller. Let's go ahead and call that a message. And now let's just double check our little tutorial. Okay, so it did indeed tell us to create that function. So we were right. Mass assignment. Yes, we did that. Okay, the migration was the only thing we didn't quite get done all the way. Looks like I was missing a user ID on there as well, so it was good that I kind of checked that because you do need your chirps to belong to a user. And we're going cascade on delete, which I like because now if I delete a user, I delete its chirps. Now, I would normally do a test here, but in interest of time, let's go ahead and run this. So, artisan migrate. And sure enough, you have a chirps table. So now, is this happy? Oh, there's a dark and light on here. Nice Laravel screen. Okay, so in theory, that was created. I can double check with Table Plus. As I said before, this is why I like using MySQL because it's just always going to be here for me. And these are not the badges, the drones that you were looking for. Let's go to Chirper. So if we look at Chirper, we have chirps. And we have successfully stored a chirp in the database. That's connected to user ID 1, which is stored in codes Laravel. That's my middle name. Laravel is not my middle name, but maybe it should be. Maybe I should be Jordan Laravel Partridge. Okay, so we have stored a chirp with not much detail, with not much happening here. And did we do timestamps? We did. Do I want to do soft deletes? I think I do. And I did make a rollback, which in the community people say don't do rollbacks because you would never roll back on production, but I've never really thought that rollback was for production. I thought that was just so you could see what you were doing better on your dev environment. I'm going to go ahead and add soft deletes here. Go over to Chirps. Add the trait for soft deletes. And I don't think this actually has a factory. It's interesting. All right, so now we have a deleted at. So this is basically whenever Laravel deletes this, it's not going to actually remove the record. It's just going to mark it deleted. So it's a restorable thing. So I always recommend soft deletes for most things, especially if you don't want to prevent people from accidentally deleting things. That way you still have a record. You just kind of retire it from your system. Okay. So in the previous video, we were able to, or previous section rather, we were able to get these chirps to store. And we have that. Okay, so we'll just kind of go back through that. We did our model and our migration. I honestly would have done a factory and a test too. I don't think you can do a test from make model, but you can certainly do make test. I can kind of go into testing a little bit later. We did our routes. We created our response. Rendering a page at chirp/index, which we created. Here is our React component. We are importing React. We're importing our layout. We're importing an input error, primary button, and a form and a head. Which is interesting because, okay, so these are not components. They are just inline fields. The error is an actual thing, and the primary button is a component. Great, so we did that. We did our dark mode. We did our navigation stuff. Saving the chirp, our controller method, which basically validates. So I wonder if the error comes through already. Let's test that. So if I don't have one, I should get an error, right? Okay, so that's working. And if I do too long, I should definitely get an error. So I don't know how long is too long. And I think what I can do, though, is that should be over 255. Okay, we cannot go more than 255. So out of the box, we already have some nice validation on our tweets. Or chirps, rather. Okay, so now, essentially, I want to do a little bit of a testing here, where I want to see, like, if you don't have MySQL and you're using SQLite and you don't really want to deal with your database, can you see what is in your data? And the answer is absolutely correct. So we're going to use something called Artisan Tinker, or Laravel Tinker, which allows us to run PHP Laravel code from our command line. So we're going to do a new chirp. This is a new chirp. Because I don't have anything in my database right now, I rolled back. So would have, it should have, could have. Basically, let's go Artisan Tinker. Having some difficulty. Okay, so let's go app, models. Gotta do it right, chirp. And you can see that that's there. Cool. So we can, I think we can do exit to get out of there. Now I want a factory. Factories are cool because you can create fake data pretty easily. So we should have probably just generated it with our model. That's how I normally would have done it, but I was kind of following the tutorial closely. So let's go Artisan, make, test, chirp, test. Alright, so since I selected pest, it's here. And the thing I like to do is I like to use it instead of test because I think the syntax it reads more like a sentence to me. So it can be created with a factory. And this isn't actually doing that yet. It's basically going to the root and making sure you get a 200, but just for the sake of fun, let's just go ahead and run some tests, because I know you get tests out of the box. You see everything passed, you actually had 26, but there's a lot of stuff on the Bree side that actually comes with it. So now let's make this actually do what it's supposed to. So we can use a little AI, but what I'm basically going to do is just go chirp factory create. So that's a chirp. So we can go ahead and make that a variable. And basically you want to make sure that this just works. So the thing that I would normally do when I'm developing is, so message to be string, we know that's about right. And yeah, it's about right. We can do that. And then let's expect, this is pretty thorough, but let's expect chirp to be a chirp. So that should work. And it doesn't really like this. Let's go ahead and do simplify FQN. We have an import. All this stuff's here. What doesn't it like there? So we can chain those a lot cleaner. So now if I run that, I should get some failures. And I did. And actually, what I normally would have done is I would have rolled back, or actually gotten to the point where I haven't done my migration yet. So let's roll back our chirp migration. And now, it should still work without... Okay, one thing I want to do real quick is I want to do set up a test database. And the easiest way to do that, a lot of times I like to use MySQL for it, but you have these things that are commented out. So you can start using a SQLite test database. So now, let's see where we're at as far as stuff. Like, we've gotten to the point where we have a test, so let's just do a little check-in. Store chirps start test. Good place to be. Good place to be. I'm gonna push that up. So now, if I go get status, I don't have anything. Oh, I need to add this all. And I forgot some files. That's too fast. Sometimes this isn't the fun. That's all there, so now if you go get status, you have nothing. So now if you do artisan test, I imagine this is going to create... It actually isn't though, because it creates it in memory. That's right, so that's the best place to create a test database in memory, because if you don't really need to look at it, who cares? Alright, so we are failing, and the reason we're failing is we don't think we have a chirp factory. We do, but it's not working because it doesn't. Okay, so if we get to our error database factories, chirp factory. Oh, because this is called Chirps factory, so I need to call that chirp factory. And actually I should refactor it, because that way it will rename everything. Refactor. So it's not a Chirps factory, it's a chirp factory. Naming's very specific on Laravel. Alright, go ahead and do that refactor. While we're here, we're going to go ahead and clean this up a bit more. Clean up code might just do it for us. That's a thing of beauty, I think. So now, I wonder if it will just work. Let's try it. So that works, and it hasn't run my migration, and I know that because if I do, it's going to add those. So let's go ahead roll back one step. And that's only going to roll back my chirps, I believe. Okay, so now we don't have a chirps table. So if I go in and I mess up my migration, we can go ahead and say something like, let's just take something out. So if we take that out, and I run an artisan test, now I'm going to fail, but I also have not run my migration. So if I take that away, run my test again, still not good. What did I do wrong? And I think what's happening here is we're not actually running our refresh database trait in pests. So we can do that real quick by going to pests, and it is. I wonder if we can just that's just now I don't know what's going on. Oh, it's because I completely removed the message. I didn't remove the comment. Okay, so that was as expected. So now we are passed. So now we know that we're good to run this migration because everything's working. So voila. Okay, so now we're getting back to Tinker. We already looked up Tinker for just showing one record. Let's kind of try to do a little bit more now. And the thing that we can do here, let's go ahead and do artisan. Let's do I think we can create 500 this way. So, no. Okay, so I'm spelling this wrong. Chirp. Okay, so something's wrong here. Okay, this is very interesting. Let's see, what do we do here? We have something here. Chirp all. That works. So we got all those, so now we see that we have 500 of these. And if we want to look, if we really want to look, we can, but I don't think it's going to show all. We're just going to show the first few. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so now let's go back and see where we are with chirps. Alright, so it wanted us to show Tinker. We did. We actually did a factory and created a bunch more. Let's continue showing chirps. So now we're retrieving, and you see we do have our index, but it's not sending our chirps, and I think it should. So let's go to our chirp controller. so we're going to do chirp with user ID name, which this is going to include the ID and the name from the user, and then it's going to show us our latest. So I think I'm going to see what they do, because I don't know what I'm doing yet. Okay, so we got that. So now the chirp needs a relationship to the user, which I think it has. No, it doesn't. We did the other relationship, so we need a belongs to user. Okay, so beautiful. Let's go ahead and add a return type. Let's go ahead and make that a simplified FQN. Perfect. All right, and then on the component side, so we are creating a chirp component now. So previously we messed up and created a page. We are actually doing a chirp component. So chirp.jsx. That should work. So we got code here. Looks like we are going to have a div, an SVG, some other coolness. Okay, I don't know what that all is. I'm going to go ahead and snag this all up. And let's pop it into our little fun little component. Alright. So not a whole lot going on here, but we got something. Alright. So now on our existing index, we need to add a chirp component. So it looks like our index is now going to include an auth and chirps. We're going to import that component that we just created. And let's see what else it shows that we're doing here. And it looks like we're going to map our chirps to the chirp component with some kind of cool. So let's see. My tailwind's a little bit shaky, but we're going to do margin top 6, background white, shadow small, rounded large, divide Y, which don't really know the divide Y part of it, but if we look ahead, we can see that it's Jess Archer putting that together. Great. Alright, back on our component, we need to go to our index page. See if we can remember what we were doing here. We're going to import chirp. These appear to be alphabetical order, so if we want to follow that convention, let's go ahead and do import chirp, and that should autocomplete for me. It just doesn't. Okay, so it doesn't like it because it's not being used yet. So auth, that's our user getting passed through, but let's go ahead and also pass through our chirps, and that is coming from here. We're passing our chirp with the user ID and name, latest, get. So this is just basically sorting them. Okay, so it's not going to really change anything for us quite yet, but let's have a look. Alright, so we got this, chirper test, I don't remember. Fun. This is going a little bit long. Let's go to dashboard. I'm not in here. Oh, I gotta register again. That's right. Register. Jordan. Codes. Laravel. I don't need a strong password. I'll just put whatever. So we're in here. So I save that because I don't want to remember that anymore. We have a chirp. Let's go test. Got a chirp. Chirps would have been created, but nothing happens yet, so nothing is broken. And the thing we need to do now is include this after the form. So, I don't know where my PHP storm is, but it's behind here. I do know. I lied. Alright, so we have a form, we have a div. I think we want our chirps to show up now. So, we're going to map our chirps, and then for each of them we're going to pass the ID and then message chirp. Okay, so I'm not going to speculate. I'm just going to let this do its thing. Should be logged in already, right? Yeah, I am. So now you can see that all these chirps are coming in. And the first thing you'll notice is it's not very dark mode-y. So let's fix that. If you remember before, we did some dark background stuff. So let's go ahead and go dark. BG. Let's go Slate 800, just for the fun of it. Okay, so that's... I like that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do... Username probably needs a dark text gray. I'm not doing dark and light mode at this point. I'm just going to do dark, which is fine. Okay, so we do that. That shows up. Okay, so this probably could go a little darker. Let's go dark. Let's go 400. I'm liking that already. Nicely, we have a bunch of tweets or chirps because we made all these with our factory. But that's going to kind of show us how this fills out. The message. We could do this too. Maybe like a 100, 200. I don't know. Let's try 100. So you don't have to do the dark because you're not doing dark or light mode. There, we are showing some chirps.